You're listening to the Empty Nest Empires podcast, episode number 16. Hang on today, I've got a great guest for you, indie author Mel Greenberg. Mel is the author of the book Running with Our Eyes Closed. She's a mom, a wife, a writer, and a survivor, and you are going to hear her story today. I think it will bring you some clarity and some hope about your own future. I'll be right back with Mel. Okay, your nest is empty, or it will be within a few years. So now what? Whether you know it or not, we are building empires. Empires of faith, family, fun, fitness, and of course, finance. And those empires are the legacy we leave for our loved ones. I'm Tammy Romani, an empty nester mom, grandma, and entrepreneur with a vision for ever greater things in the years ahead. It's never too late, and there is no limit to what we can do. I'm so happy you're here. Now let's get to building. My guest is Mel Greenberg, and Mel and I met, of all things, on the internet. We're internet friends. We're not in real life friends yet, but we have planned that when she's in LA next time, we will meet up for coffee or lunch or something, because she reached out to me on Instagram, and I was just so happy to be able to chat with her, to see our connection, and to be able to read some of her story. I knew it was something I needed to share with you. So thank you, Mel, for being here today.
Hi, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, we are Insta friends. I love it.
We are Insta friends. And how many, I just want to say that over the last 4 or 5 years, I have met some really incredible people through the internet.
Me too. It is
Facebook groups.
awesome.
It's really incredible. I hear your pup in the background playing with her
I know.
the toys.
I thought I put all the squeaky toys away, but she got the one. But
It's funny. I had a golden retriever that we could not buy squeaky toys for. He would, the second he got it, he would bring it home and he would pick away with his mouth at the seam, pull out the squeaker, and then he could have that toy. Like he hated
my bulldog does that. She chews them to shreds, but she likes she likes the squeak.
But then he didn't shred the rest of the toy. It was usually a little stuffed animal, and he would cuddle with it and sleep with it. It was his baby. It was
That's
the funniest.
Yeah.
And I started just finally buying him, children's stuffed animals, because he just, all the dog toys have squeakies and he couldn't tolerate it. Maybe his hearing, but I love hearing the sounds of your dogs in the background because I'm a dog person, as you are.
See,
and I love that.
Connected. That's a must.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. But I want to talk to you today about a couple of things, because you are not a victim. You are a survivor of several things. And I love the way you present your story to the world. You're a beautiful writer. So Mel has a couple of books in her repertoire. She has contributed to a book, a global collective book called Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformation and Change. Oh, good. You've got them there. There's that one. You can find it on Amazon. I will put a link in the show notes. And also, she has a book that I just downloaded and started reading called Running with Your Eyes Closed. So we're going to talk about all these things. But first, let's just get to know you better, Mel. Okay. You are saying that you've survived more than some and less than many. What do you mean by that?
I actually have thought about that more since we first spoke, and I turned 60 a couple of weeks ago. And you don't get to this age and this stage in life without, surviving and moving beyond a number of challenges and difficulties, whether they be economic, social, health, so it's just, it's life, and it's how you deal with what you're confronted with. And I choose to look at it from the standpoint of surviving, because I don't think of there being another choice. And I like that. I like to frame my life that way. And it keeps me a little more grounded and positive. And I've always been somebody who looks for a silver lining, and that just is a furtherment of that. just kind of always.
Now, can you tell me how that has changed though from the past? Because, there is a saying out there, that which I most feared has come upon me. And you actually had that happen. So you spent a lot of time fearing your future. And can you tell us what that means, what that word and phrase would mean to you?
It does. I lost my mother to breast cancer a week before her 50th birthday, and I was 17. So I spent a good portion of my adult life fearing that her fate was in fact mine, or my destiny. And a lot of anxiety developed from that time. And, in dealing with anxiety, you live on the outside, but you keep so much inside. And then I got it literally right the same year, I was 49. And
wow,
it was liberating, really, because I, number one, realized that all that worry was completely pointless. You have to think about things and act and be proactive, but to just worry endlessly, which I did, and obsessively, was completely a waste of energy, and so much time and space was dedicated to that's probably what I came away with. That's what changed me the most. And I don't tend to do that so much anymore. I mean, there are still things that I think about more, that's life, but my life, I should say. I don't speak for everybody, but for the most part, I don't. I think that it's how we are all given things to deal with in our lives, and it's our choice of how we deal with them. And so I try and really focus on what it is I can do with what's in front of me, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, how I can deal with that.
I wish I had tools like that when I was younger. Now I'm aware of this, but I think when I was a young mom, I just kind of was, things just come to you, things just happen, you deal with them as they happen. And I'll never forget when I had a cyst, and my doctor said, it's probably nothing. It's probably just, a water-filled cyst. It's with your cycle. It'll be gone next month. Mm-hmm. And then he said this sentence, but why don't you just go across the hall and have a blood test so we can rule out cancer? That's all he had to say for me to, within the next week, while I was waiting for those results, I was planning my funeral and who was going to watch my kids. And my mind just went, I did not choose like you did I had no diagnosis. I had a notion, and I had an offhand comment, and it was what he suspected. It was gone the next month. It was something that just sometimes happens.
So that little seed was planted.
Oh my gosh, that seed of fear, and how I let it grow. And I
know, it takes on a life of its own.
Oh, it absolutely did. And I don't think I talked about it to anybody. I don't even think I mentioned it to my husband. I was busy, had 2 little kids at home. I am so aware now of, just from experiencing that, of how we can latch on to things, either good or bad, right?
They take on.
And you have to teach yourself to latch on to the good.
Yeah. Well, I remember the worst thing before my diagnosis, yearly, since I was in my late 20s, going for mammograms, and the worst week or to 10 days of life was waiting for that envelope to come or a call.
Yeah.
What would it be? And I kind of laugh, and I would joke with the radiologist when I go in, I still do, when I go in for my mammograms, it's like, the upside of having cancer is that I get to get the results right away. They don't make you wait. So, and it's huge. I mean, it's an emotional drain. And even into the best circumstances, and no matter how hard you try, it's just that moment of uncertainty and not knowing what your future might be. It is scary. Yeah, it's daunting.
It really is. Mm-hmm. It really is. And I want to direct people to your blog, I love your blog, by the way. And
Yeah.
it's different. It's different. It's not you writing all the time, but you are such a champion of others, and you want other people to tell their stories, that your blog actually is a compilation of various essays from other people. But you do have one on there called 2 Words, and I'm going to put the link to that under this video if you're watching this on Facebook, or in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast, because like I let those 2 words, the words that doctor say to me,
Yeah.
kind of destroy my mind for a week. You had 2 words come to you, and you were able to flip those words. And I just want to read this one, just a couple of sentences. What I feared might happen to me did, and I was okay. I would be okay. I now considered my life in terms of before and after. The diagnosis and my choices in how to process and proceed with it all were a blessing. I gained perspective I don't believe that I could have had otherwise. I was truly blessed. I began to look at the life I've been given, the family I'd created, the accomplishments I'd achieved in a new light. Before I got my cancer, I spent my days fretting the what ifs. After I got my cancer, my thoughts shifted to the what nows. Oh man, that actually brought a couple of tears when I read that, because what a message of hope you bring. If we could just flip those what ifs to what nows, because really all we have is the present, right?
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think we're all, I liked what you said about, when you're raising children, you're just so caught up in the moment. And the funny contradiction there is that we're so caught up in the moment, but we're really not present in it. And you're just, doing what you have to do to get through, and whatever that looks like, whatever your picture looks like. And I think when you're forced to step back and kind of visit number one, the plan isn't quite what you anticipated. And then beyond that, your mortality, it shifts at least it did for me, it shifted my inner dialogue, which is rampant. And it's a good thing I'm a writer, because the voice never stops. So at least it has somewhere to go. And it shifts that conversation though. And it's like, okay, well, so this happened, and, and something else might happen, and it might be, different. So you just appreciate the hours that you're in a bit differently.
Yeah, that's such a good word. And for any women or men who are listening that are going through a difficult time, what's your best advice for them?
Well, hopefully, I hope for anyone out there that they have a good support network, and what that looks like, if it's family, if it's close friends, if it's professionals, that tap into that, and don't be afraid to, I think we're all really hard on ourselves, and we think we have to get through things and be strong and tough and do it on our own. And there are people around, and if you're lucky enough to have a great family, I certainly was, who was there every step of the way, it makes all the difference. And it gives you added strength in a time when you're feeling alone and vulnerable, and you don't have to do it alone. So if you're not, there are other resources, there are opportunities out there. Don't be alone. Don't go through it alone.
Yeah, that's such a good word.
Reach out to me on my website. I'll talk to you.
Yeah. And I would even say that, honestly, I've actually discovered some extremely supportive Facebook groups. Facebook gets a bad rap that it's the cesspool of people's nasty opinions. But when you go into the groups and you really find a tribe there, oh my.
It's like this whole thing is the silver lining. You can you can blanket statement this, but then within that are some incredible people and group, like you say, great support groups and private groups that are beneficial and that will help you. So do reach. Don't do it alone. Don't go through it alone. You don't have to.
Yeah. That's a great word. Well, let's turn the corner for a minute and talk about how you came to write a novel. Your piece that's in the Chaos to Clarity book is actually your story. So you're very good at sharing your story, but then you created these characters and you wrote a fiction book. And I just want to know, as a writer myself, and I can so relate to that inner dialogue thing that you said. I thought everyone was like that, and then I learned that's not true.
I know.
It's like all day long I'm writing a story in my head. I mean, isn't everybody? And I guess not.
Right?
So it seems normal. Wish I would write it out more, but you actually did it, and you developed some characters. And did that all come from just your experience of becoming an empty nester? What was
pretty much? Yeah. I think that even as little, my youngest son had just turned 25. So in 2013, when he was graduating from high school, the conversation openly, publicly, socially about becoming an empty nester and everything was not what it is now. And I'm grateful for those changes for moms who are about to go through that, because it is a really flippin' big deal. And I just didn't think about that, because at that point I was already living my, let's just appreciate life and go through it and not really worry about things. And I probably should have worried about that a little bit, but it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I have always been a writer. I worked in television and radio, which is quite different than fiction and that side of writing. So I tried some things that weren't for me, and I ultimately, again, I go back to supportive family, and I'm really blessed in that regard. And it was like, why don't you just go back to writing? That's what you love. That's what you do. And my husband said that to me, and he's from New York, and he said it in his beautiful New York, like, cut the crap way. And, but he was right. And so then through time, I started, and then conversations with my kids, they were asking, so many of their friends' parents were getting divorced or separating or moving, a lot of big life changes, and why that might be. So I kind of started to make inner, like, little notes in my head, and kind of make observations about the lives around me that, it's not really unique, and it's a really interesting time. You come together, you have a family, and then those kids are gone. And, however many kids you have, they really are just the third party in the marriage. And once that party leaves, do you have a marriage? What's up? And then I chose to stay home full time and raise my children. So that was another obstacle. So now I have an empty house, and I hadn't worked outside the home in a long time. I was like, oh, now what? And you really kind of was trying to figure out what my voice should sound like and what I wanted it to be. And going back to writing was the right thing, and it was beautiful and perfect. And through that time, the characters kind of evolved. I never entertained writing a memoir, but I wanted to write, and a fictional story seemed a really fun way to address it, but also an interesting one. And then as I got into it, and I really had fun, because those characters could be exactly who I wanted them to be. And I created this life, and it really resonated with people. And Samantha, the character, and what she's going through, it's I think people relate to her, the readers, and certainly the responses that I get, because she's flawed and unapologetically so, because she's also trying to figure it out and trying to, be better. And I think that's something that we're all doing. And this is the first book, and we pick up with her in the second book in a very different point in life. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
The first book is a cliffhanger, and you're kind of wondering, did it work? Did their marriage work? Are they together? And you'll have to see.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to say that I bought it on my Kindle and started reading, and I was pretty captivated by your character, Samantha. I do want to let people know, in case you're not ready for it, is that it has some graphic sexuality in it, in terms of this married couple reconnecting in this crisis that they have.
Well, and it really was integral to their story. It became the glue that they, and kind of the branch that they hung on to, maybe in fear of losing each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was really important in this part of their journey together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you hear from people and they really connect with the characters that you've created, knowing that they are not real life, but maybe they're a compilation of stories that you've heard. Like you said, your sons came and were kind of amazed that a lot of their friends' parents were getting divorced once their kids left the nest. Do you think this is a kind of a crisis that is happening now, even though there is more help right now and more conversation about the empty nest and what that feels like? Do you feel like this is a really common disconnect that happens between couples?
Oh, I do. And in part, I mean, in addition to the fact that the kids are leaving and now that's changed, because at some point, relationships become about, like, what do the kids need to be? What, it's just, the
It's
flyby.
real life.
Yeah. And I think that we're really hard on ourselves and we think we're supposed to be perfect and we're not. But additionally, with regard to marriage, the person I am now at newly 60 is sure as heck not the person I was at 30. And
Right.
I think that it's a matter of owning that and honoring that both in yourself and as a couple. And I think maybe, sometimes I think it's easier. I think that's my opinion, is that it's easier to kind of start over and get to have something new and shiny than to work through
Mm.
difficulties. In most cases, obviously, there are cases that that's not even a choice, and nor should it be. But I think that life itself, like I said, is a challenge, and you don't get to this point in life without having faced some. And if you're honest about that and you just keep going and you're not quite so hard on yourself, I think that we're all really hard on ourselves. And I don't think that our culture today helps that.
Okay, so in talking about your book and the development of these characters and how you imagine them and what they're going through, I noticed that they have a private plane.
Yeah, I actually, part of my creating the life and the characters that I did was to address, especially in our culture right now and in our filtered world where everything is so perfect, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying about us being really hard on ourselves. And I think we all think the grass is greener on the other side. And if I just did this, if I just had this, it would all be better. And I really wanted to explore that idea that, regardless, life can suck and challenges come up and illness comes and marriage struggles, life struggles. So I wanted to really have some fun with that, but shine a light on it, so, and hopefully that it could touch someone who's like, maybe life's not so bad. And it goes back to the grass is greener where you water it, give it your attention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it also goes back to the if only, if only I had that thing, or if only I had this, or if only my life was this, it would be better. And that's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm. Not at
Yeah.
all. Yeah, it's what you give your attention to. And
Yeah.
somebody can always have more, but somebody always has less too. So it's not about viewing it from that perspective.
Yeah. So has your, I want to say, either redefining or reinvention of yourself in, I hate the word midlife. I just,
I do too.
I feel like we're past midlife. We're 60. We're probably in the last third, maybe. I think you mentioned to me once that someone called it fourth quarter.
My husband.
I've
Yeah.
heard the phrase third act or last act, or, something like that. However you describe this period of life, how do you think it's healthy for us to reinvent ourselves? Or is it a reinvention, or is it just actually rediscovering who we actually are underneath in the first place?
I always kind of refer to at least my journey as redefining, because
Okay.
every new turn brings you somewhere else, and it's how you want that to look. And that's what I went through when I faced being an empty nester and everything. I thought like, how do I want the next years of my life to look? And what do I want? And what do I want my voice to be? I'm relevant. I love Betty White, and the fact that she just turned 98 just
Yeah.
makes me smile from ear to ear. And that's who I want to be, given however long I'm given on this planet, to enjoy and embrace. And I imagine that's going to always be changing. I hope it is. I hope that because I think I want to always be learning something new. And I had no idea that writing my little story would turn out the way it has and bring me where it has and living the life I'm living right now. And,
Yeah.
So it's being open to what can come. So that's why I kind of like redefining.
Redefining. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think that's such a good word, because I feel like I've even had people say to me, who am I, or what is next, now that I feel like the best years of my life are ending right now, because they just enjoyed that whole motherhood journey and the whole, my last child is now a senior. I'm enjoying every moment. And I've heard this from people who actually have a career. They might even be public speakers. They're already speaking into other people, but they feel like there's this big void coming up. So I love that you said redefining.
Yeah, it is a void.
It's
I felt a significant change because everything about my day changed when the kids left. And it's not that I wanted them to come back. They were off pursuing their lives beautifully, and I couldn't be happier. But now I needed to figure out what the heck I was supposed to do now that job was done. Because, that it was basically losing one job, now finding another one.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you tried several things that didn't work. So I do want to encourage people that you're not going to find that thing you're supposed to do immediately. Wouldn't you say that now's the time to really explore?
And I think also not get, bogged down in, well, this didn't work, so I can't do anything. I'm just a failure. But that didn't work, and let's, be open to other things, and it will lead you along, and you'll find what fits. And I think if you kind of just simply look to what moves you inside, you'll find your way pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, I'm really finding that you can't force whatever you're supposed to be doing. It's in you.
Yeah.
You need to almost discover it.
Well, I also think that if you look at things, going through situations that don't work for you, that those are learning, and those are also very positive. And you have to look at it that way. So it didn't, manifest in the way that you may have hoped or wished or dreamt, but other things came from it. And, for me, it was getting back out there and having a voice and some developing some confidence in a way that maybe had been tabled for a while.
Yeah. 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 I love that phrase, finding your voice, because I don't know. I think a lot of us get kind of locked down into just the definition of who they are and who we are, and or based on our personality type. Yeah. We kind of internalize everything. We don't feel like we have an opinion that matters, or a gift that matters to the world, or who am I, or there's already 10 people that I know personally doing that thing that I think I can do well. And they say things like, well, who am I to step out in boldness and do this? But on the other hand, if you're not going to be bold, when else can you be, right?
Yeah.
Because you've reached an age where you don't care as much anymore what people think, hopefully. Did you care a lot in the past, and now you're like, this is me?
Yes and no. To some extent, I don't and didn't, but there was always a part of me that I would say wanted to please other people, or was afraid I wasn't doing something well enough, or would let someone down. And I certainly, I don't want to let people down, but I don't worry so much about everyone, because people judge regardless. And those who know what's going on, and the rest don't matter. So I try not to worry about all those that don't matter, that will have an opinion and have a voice regardless. And I think that makes life easier in general and more positive.
Yeah. So then let's go back to your book. Have you received negative feedback on your book?
I actually I've only received two, and they were actually before it even got published, and they were from Tucson. They were hidden. They're anonymous, but
Uh-huh.
they were from Tucson accounts, if you will, and that was kind of interesting. And I just honestly, I figured, what will happen. There were so many good reviews came in and so much good feedback that I thought, well, that the negative is good too. First of all, it's their opinion. But if I were reading all of the reviews and I saw 50 great ones and a couple not so good ones, I would think, well, I wonder why. And that would make me want to read it. Like, what did these people not like? And what did these people like? I want to see for myself. So I figured it's all good. So I kind of let go of that pretty quickly.
That's great, because I have heard people that let that get them really stuck. It's funny how our minds work. We sometimes go to that worst case scenario. Like you could see 100 beautiful reviews and those two negative ones.
That's when you focus
and the
on.
Negative ones are the ones that just dig in and get you and, frustrate you. And why'd that person say that? And I can't seem to let that go.
Well, it's hard.
Did you have to have a talk with yourself?
Like, writer, it's personal. When you put that out,
it is personal.
It's a big part of your soul and your imagination and your work, and you are allowing you're opening yourself up and to a really vulnerable spot, and so it is personal. So it's hard to step back, but it's important that you do and appreciate that it's someone's opinion, but that's all it is, and keep doing what you love to do.
I know of a writer who finally said she stopped reading reviews altogether because in her mind, she couldn't separate the negative from the positive, and she was always going to the negative. So her way to deal with that is, you know what, I'm just not even going to look. But then her husband would look. And she said, I could always tell if he'd been reading the reviews because he would get really agitated because he would take on that negative stuff and want to just, duke it out with people to protect her. Yeah. And she said, that was our decision. That's how we dealt with it. I love that you have that personality that you can just let it roll right off your back.
Yeah, that I can. A lot of stuff I can't, but I just figure it is what it is.
And you have to understand that it feels personal because it's something you poured your heart and soul in. But if it's written by someone who doesn't know you,
it's not personal.
How can it be personal?
Right.
It's just their perception. Yeah.
And it's fun. I like reading the reviews. One thing that has been an unexpected, it's a very niche audience that this book I had thought would resonate with, but I get reviews and I get emails from people who are my kids' ages, and I love that because one was specifically, she's just like, now I understand what my parents were going through because I felt like they were aliens, and it was the sweetest conversation. And so kids understand at that age from a different perspective. And it may be if that helps them understand what their parents are going through, it can, again, we go back to the dialogue and the conversation and be, confronting those tribulations at the get-go. They don't turn into something, so complicated and painful.
Yeah. Wow. That's really something. I think my kids, if I wrote a book like that with some explicit content like you did, they would be horrified.
Well, my kids were horrified. My oldest
Your kids were horrified. Okay, good. They're normal.
I sent him and his fiance, and it took me 3 days to hit send because I thought, I hope this book makes a lot of money because I'm going to need to pay for therapy for them for the next 30 years. And my oldest son either called or emailed, I don't know which, my younger son, and said, don't read it, just tell mom she's a good writer. Oh my God.
That's so good. That's so good. Mel, this has been so amazing. And I just want to let you know what a message of hope that you bring to people.
Oh,
I
thank
feel like
you.
any woman who has or is experiencing breast cancer or the fear that's associated with that, seeing someone like you change your perspective even at the time and get the support that you needed and tackle that. And then now, over 10 years later, you are just a shining example of what it means to go beyond something and use it for good. And then I just also want to speak into your novel career, just being a writer and even a fiction writer where you create these characters that so many people are resonating with. There may be couples in that stage of life that are at such a disconnect, like your couple was in those early empty nest years, that it sparks some ideas in them on how to reconnect.
Yeah, thank
And
you so much. I appreciate that.
I really, the word that I think of when I see the body of work that you have so far is hope.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So go check out Mel's stuff. And I also want to talk about you being an entrepreneur, because you formed an actual publishing company to publish your book.
I did.
And it's a division of Mel Media, LLC. And then you created a publishing arm of that. And I just think that's amazing. Is
It's
this
really
something
fun.
that just
Yeah.
came to you as a necessity? Now you're looking at other books to publish. I mean, girlfriend, you started a publishing company.
It's a hybrid, and I love being able to bring other authors, give them the opportunity to bring their work to life and to the marketplace. And the first book, actually, other than my own, is launching just shortly, and it's a children's book. And it's by an NFL player, which is really exciting. And
oh my word!
Kind of a fun twist there, but it's a fabulous, fabulous piece, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And the pieces that I'm taking on, and the authors that I have accepted, are works that I believe in, and want to help and work with them. It's a fun journey, and yeah, I fell into it just by the time we got together to work on my own book. And that's what's happened. So yeah, it's cool.
What fun. Well, when you're a grandma, that book that's coming out will be a treasure, I'm sure. So I want you all to follow Mel Greenberg on Instagram, especially because she's very active over there, because you are going to want to watch for the announcement of that book, especially if you're a grandparent. I know I will.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So thanks, Mel. I appreciate you being here so much. And I know this isn't the end of our friendship. I feel like this is just the beginning, that we will stay connected. And I look forward to any kind of collaboration in the future that might possibly come from this. It's amazing that
you're having me.
The internet can be used.
Everything and what you do for the empty nest community. And I know we're not using the word midlife, but I will. This point, we've got some interesting voices out there, and you're giving a wonderful platform to them. Thank you.
I am really honored, so honored that Mel agreed to be on the podcast. And what you don't even know about how gracious she is, we actually had to record this podcast twice, because the first time we did it, we had complete meltdown when it came to the recording service that I used. It was not saved, and we lost everything but the first 3.5 minutes. And, even that very night, as I was thinking, oh no, this is so awful. And I just this was such a great interview, and I hate to ask her to do it again. And I sent her a text and I said, hey, I'm really concerned that I don't see the recording yet. Like, by now it should have come. And her immediate response was, well, I guess we'll just have to do it again then. I'll tell you what, when you get a gracious response like that from someone, it warms your heart, really, because nowadays we are so tense and just bound up with needing everything to be perfect. And I just so appreciate Mel Greenberg so much. So I hope you will take a look at the show notes, click all those links, get acquainted with Mel, follow her, and just see what she's got coming down the pike through her new publishing company, this children's book that's coming. I'm so excited for that. Take a look at the Chaos to Clarity book and also her book. If you look her up on Amazon, you'll find her author page. And you know, she's just got so much to offer the world, and I can't say enough about this new friend of mine. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I really look forward to talking to you next time right here on Empty Nest Empires. Bye-bye.